Nibiru's researchers murdered by the Secret Services. We know very well that governments don't give a damn about murdering civilians. 9/11, terrorist attack across Europe, and the most recent events in Vegas clearly show this. More than one shooter with a lot of conflicting so-called evidence. However, the CIA and the Mossad are losing grip with their idiotic false flags which nobody believes anymore. How about the disappearances of Nibiru researchers? Many highly respected astronomers have claimed another massive planet is lurking on the outer reaches of the solar system. NASA has even announced evidence of its existence twice only for it to withdraw the notice. Most recently, a team for the Californian Institute of Technology said the existence of what they call Planet X or the 12th planet will be proved by the end of this year. But a leading voice in a growing movement of believers claims researchers who find evidence of the planet are bumped off in a cover-up. David Mead believes a giant planet called Planet X is hurtling through space towards Earth. He originally thought it would appear on 23 September 2017 but has now revised his estimate based on apocalyptic passages in the Bible to say it will become visible before Christmas. NASA has denied Nibiru exists, but members of the so-called Nibiru Cataclysm movement say this is a cover-up to prevent panic and reserve space in underground bunkers for the world elite. Mr. Mead, author of Planet X: The 2017 Arrival, says scientists who break the code of silence are disappeared. I personally do not agree with Mead for a few reasons. The Bible was written by men, probably high on opium, and was rewritten countless times in order to control the masses via fear and order, also omitting to include detailed paragraphs from the Book of Enoch. You cannot base yourself on fables. Nibiru clearly does exist, but why the hell would it collide with Earth when Nibiru itself is inhabited by the Anunnakis? I'm pretty sure our alien gods are not on a suicide mission. We cannot predict exactly when it will arrive within our orbit, so these doomsday states are as efficient as a chocolate teapot. Mead was wrong on his first prediction. Maybe it's time to stop predicting and wait patiently for its arrival? Nonetheless, I do agree with him when he presents facts which are not based on fairy tales like the Bible. He suggests Dr. Robert Harrington, supervising astronomer U.S. Naval Observatory, who claimed to have found proof of Planet X, and Australian astrophysicist Rodney Marks, who was working at a South Pole telescope. Both died in mysterious circumstances. The South Pole telescope, an amazing piece of kit. Dr. Harrington believed Planet X was an intruder planet that passed through our solar system and said it was capable of supporting alien life. The Christian researcher and amateur stargazer said, "Have there been strange instances? Yes." Dr. Harrington was mysteriously done away with in the 1990s before he could say anything, and he was head of the Naval Observatory. Then you have the mysterious death in 2000 of an individual at the South Pole telescope, who supposedly died of alcohol poisoning. The CIA have murdered him with their usual pinprick injections, or even the heart attack gun. No trace in toxicity tests during post-mortem examinations. Secret services are pretty good at what they do, almost. And as head of the U.S. Naval Observatory, Dr. Harrington was one of the leading astronomers in the U.S. Along with James Christie, he discovered Pluto's moon Charon. Dr. Harrington became a high-profile Planet X believer, and started scouring the skies for evidence. He said the movement of the planets Uranus and Neptune and their moons pointed to another large planet beyond Pluto. Dr. Harrington was interviewed by Zecharia Sitchin, the first person to suggest the existence of Nibiru, in 1990. Sitchin had translated tablets written by an ancient Middle Eastern culture called the Sumerians. He said they told of a giant planet called Nibiru that orbited the Sun every 3,600 years. The planet, which was populated by an alien race called the Anunnaki, passed through the solar system wreaking havoc. Dr. Harrington said Pluto had once been a moon of Neptune but had been knocked out of orbit by Planet X, which he called an intruder planet, as it passed through the solar system in an elliptical orbit around the Sun day. Speaking to Sitchin, he said, "If it is in the kind of orbit we describe here, it would have to be a planet that would have a mass something like 3 to 5 times the mass of Earth. This would put it intermediate between gaseous planets like Uranus and Neptune and the terrestrial planets we have in the inner part of the solar system. So if this planet turns out to be in a 3,600 year orbit, then its mass would be correspondingly larger. But we are talking about something that is a perfectly reasonable kind of planet that looks like a good nice planet. Small enough that it's not going to be completely enveloped in gas. It's perfectly capable of supporting life forms of one kind or another." Some claim he was about to publish new observations he had made in New Zealand when he died. Blogger Marshall Masters writes, Harrington sent back reports of this ominous discovery, but died of what was reported to be esophageal cancer before he could pack up his telescope and come home to hold what would have been a highly publicized press conference. Nibiru truthers claim the southern hemisphere, particularly around the South Pole, is the best place to see Nibiru, whose orbit around the Sun is said to be on a tilt to Earth's. Rodney Marks died at the South Pole while working on the Antarctic Submillimeter Telescope and Remote Observatory at the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station. The otherwise healthy 32-year-old collapsed while walking between the observatory and the base, became unwell over the next 36 hours and then died. The National Science Foundation, NSF, which runs the station, announced he had died of natural causes, but his body wasn't released for a post-mortem in New Zealand for 6 months. The autopsy found he died of ethanol poisoning, but it was unclear how he drank it. Up summary. Suicide was ruled out as he visited the station's doctor several times after feeling unwell and was confused by his condition. He had a ready access to normal alcohol and had no personal problems, and the coroner said he couldn't have drunk it accidentally. New Zealand police said NSF was uncooperative, refused to give details of an internal report or say who was at the station at the time. The station doctor, Robert Thompson, also disappeared in 2006. Welcome to Planet Earth, where you can be murdered in cold blood for sharing the truth to your fellow Earthlings. Although it is a massive universe, we live on a very small prison piece of rock, where you can be silenced forever for speaking the truth. So we see Nibiru as a liberator, not a destroyer. Yaz, MWV. Some claim he was about to publish new observations he had made in New Zealand when he died. Blogger Marshall Masters writes, Harrington sent back reports of this ominous discovery, but died of what was reported to be esophageal cancer before he could pack up his telescope and come home to hold what would have been a highly publicized press conference. Nibiru truthers claim the southern hemisphere, particularly around the South Pole, is the best place to see Nibiru, whose orbit around the Sun is said to be on a tilt to Earth's. Rodney Marks died at the South Pole while working on the Antarctic Submillimeter Telescope and Remote Observatory at the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station. The otherwise healthy 32-year-old collapsed while walking between the observatory and the base, became unwell over the next 36 hours and then died. The National Science Foundation, NSF, which runs the station, announced he had died of natural causes, but his body wasn't released for a post-mortem in New Zealand for 6 months. The autopsy found he died of ethanol poisoning, but it was unclear how he drank it.